What is up, everyone? My name is Cody, and this is another episode of ATP Garage. In this episode, I want to give you a basic overview of a vehicle. I want to share with you various components that can make you a more informed owner of a vehicle. This can help you save money, whether it's you doing your own maintenance or you're taking it to a shop to have somebody else do the maintenance for you. But the whole purpose of this video is to give you a basic overview of understanding a car, the components, a lot of the major components that is, to just help you be a more informed owner. That's the whole goal. So hopefully if you stick around, you may learn something new. If not, if you're an experienced car owner or a mechanic or something like that, maybe you can offer some comments down below for people of things that they need to be made aware of. Things to be, sure to stay on top of, like maintenance items, things like that. Please keep in mind, every vehicle is a little bit different, but the major components are still going to be the same. And what I mean by that is, unless it's an electric car, every internal combustion engine vehicle that's on the road needs fuel, spark, and air. And the way they get that is usually through a few different mechanisms in the vehicle, but they're relatively all the same now that everything's pretty much fuel injected. So when I say I'm going to give you a basic overview, it's going to be very generalized. I'm using my GR86 that's behind us as an example, just because it's a very simplistic car to point components out on. It's also new and clean, so it's very easy to see everything that I'm talking about. So hopefully you guys can get some value out of this video, and we'll get started. And I wanted to add one little piece here. So the main things that I'm going to be pointing out for you guys is going to be primarily major components and maintenance items. And so the key thing to make sure you're aware of is, for maintenance items, you need to make sure that you're maintaining fluids, brakes, tires, batteries, and filters. That's the main things that I can see that you need to be made aware of as a vehicle owner, whether you're a DIYer, a mechanic, or somebody that doesn't even know anything about cars. Those are the key components that I would say you really need to stay on top of to keep the car running for as long as possible. Obviously, belts and hoses come secondary to that. That's another piece that as the car ages, you definitely want to make sure of, but the fluids, the filters, battery, brakes, tires, those are the things that tend to wear out the quickest. So without further ado, we'll get started and I'll point those components out. Okay, so as mentioned, this video is primarily going to be for those that aren't as familiar with vehicles. If you are an automotive enthusiast or a mechanic, look, I understand you probably know this like the back of your hand. This video is really to help educate others to be more informed, to be more aware of the car, and that way they can make informed decisions, whether it be maintenance, whether it be, maybe tackling their own maintenance or taking it into a shop. That's the whole purpose of this video, so that people are familiar with the things that are going on in their car, so that if in the event that they do have to take it to a shop, they have some idea of what they're talking about and they don't get taken advantage of. That's really the whole purpose of this video, is to just make people more informed consumers. So without further ado, we'll show you what's going on underneath the hood of this car. And I do want to recognize, for those that aren't car enthusiasts or mechanics, opening the hood of a car can be a bit overwhelming. If you're not familiar with all the different components and things like that, you may get a little bit lost. And so again, that's the whole purpose of this video, is to just help you understand what's going on. So without further ado, I'll show you this particular engine. Every engine does look a little bit different, but a lot of the components are the same. You just may have to look around to find them. So for instance, in this car, the alternator, which is responsible for generating electricity for the vehicle, is up top on this car, but they primarily all look around the same. They may not have this cover, but you'll typically see this type of casing with wires coming out of it, and there's a belt attached to it. That's going to be your alternator. The second thing to look for is your AC compressor. So your AC compressor is usually going to have hoses that look like this. They're going to have crimped ends, and they're going to be rubber in most cases. This is responsible, obviously, for making the air conditioning work and provide cool air to you, especially during this heat wave. The next thing is your oil filter, which, mind you, in most cars, you're not going to be able to see it like this. On Subarus, they're up here on top, which is nice. But knowing what an oil filter is, this is what they look like. The whole purpose of it is to filter particulates out of the oil to ensure that it is clean as possible while it is running through the engine. The next things to keep in mind is the battery. So again, in this car, it happens to be up here by the firewall. Sometimes they're down here at the front, could be on left or right sides. In some cars, they're in the trunk, and in some cars, they're under the driver's seat. Don't ask me why, but familiarizing yourself with the location of your battery, or at least the jumper points, is key. So as mentioned, most batteries are under the hood of the car, so it's really easy to identify. In the event that your battery is under the seat or in the trunk, typically they still have jumper posts. And what I mean by that is there are posts in the engine bay that has like a red cap on it like that. And then they usually have a dedicated grounding point. And that's to help you jump the vehicle off in the event that the battery dies. I'd highly recommend understanding where that is in your car. It can save you a lot of headache in the event that a car battery dies. Next thing is hoses. So this happens to be upper radiator hose on this car. It is nice and clean. The other things to pay attention to are belts. You obviously want to make sure that there's no cracks or anything like that, just to make sure that you're staying on top of maintenance. And a few other notable components would be your brake master cylinder. The main thing you want to be aware of on that is to make sure that the fluid inside is a nice yellow golden color. If it is not, then you probably want to have that flushed out. I recommend, if you're not very familiar with vehicles, taking it into a shop, spend the $100 or whatever it is to have them do it. Having nice or new fluid in the system makes your brake system last longer. A lot of people don't realize this, but brake fluid is hygroscopic, meaning that it absorbs the water that's in the air. And so it does break down over time, and it doesn't compress, it doesn't compress quite like hydraulic fluid, which is what that fluid is. So that's the basic overviews of an engine. The things that make an engine work typically are fuel, spark, and air. So if something is amiss in that system, you want to be aware of that. And that brings me to one of the last components that I'd recommend you being aware of. And really quick, before we go to that last component that I was going to mention, I completely skipped over the air filter. So it's worth noting, making sure that you maintain your air filter. Oftentimes, if you take a car in for an oil change, they will ask you about your air filter when changing the oil filter. The air filter is responsible for filtering the air that's going in through the intake, which goes into the vehicle. If this is not changed out, on time, meaning that it's not clogged up and dirty, it can result in poor performance, bad gas mileage. It also causes added stress to the engine. And then over time, it actually can start impacting things like the throttle body, which in this case, if you see over there, this is the throttle body. It has electrical components on it to the side because this is now drive-by-wire. And so those components can get very expensive if they become clogged and damaged by not changing the filter. One thing you can do is always ask to see the filter before they actually change it so that you can validate that it does in fact need to be changed. But it's always a good idea to at least have it inspected every oil change. And so the last component I want you to be made aware of really isn't a component under the engine bay. It's actually going to be a diagnostic port. And most of the time they're found in the driver's side footwell up under the dash. Now, if you have an odd car, you may need to Google where your OBD2 port is. And this is a diagnostic port. And what this will allow you to do is, if you have warning lights that are on your dash and you're not familiar with what they are or it freaks you out, you have a couple options. You can run to your nearest parts store if it's safe to do so, and you can have them scan for codes. So AutoZone, O'Reilly's, and I think Advance, as of 2024, still do this, and they will scan the codes for free. Or now, a lot of these code readers have become really, really cheap. And there's a couple of options. You can get a OBD2 dongle like this one. This one's by Carista. The only thing I don't like about that one is it has a subscription. I would recommend getting one that doesn't have a subscription, which leads me to my old school Innova. I've had this thing for like 12 years. This thing is fantastic. It allows you to plug into the OBD2 port, so that's what it looks like, and then it allows you to scan for codes. And these codes will tell you, at least for this code reader, it'll give you a basic overview of what the code is. And the cool thing is, with the internet, you can then take that code, take the model and year of your car, put it into Google, and you will likely find what the issue is, or at least you'll get around what the issue is. And then that will allow you to decide, one, is it something simple enough that you think you could tackle? Or two, at least when you go into a shop, say it's something that you don't want to tackle, and you take it in for diagnostics, you at least have a little bit of the upper hand because now you're an informed consumer. You have the ability to tell them, hey, not fully sure what the issue is. Obviously they need to do their own diagnostics to just to validate it. But you have at least a starting point, so you're not completely blind in terms of what the issue may be. And that's very helpful because not all shops do this, but unfortunately there are shops out there that will try to take advantage of you. So the more information you have ahead of time will help you, again, to be an informed consumer and honestly help you from getting taken advantage of. So again, I hope this video created value for you. I know this was a very quick video. It's not all encompassing. If you have questions, put them down in the comments below. As I mentioned, I'm hoping other enthusiasts or mechanics jump in and they can add their thoughts down below. I will be happy to jump in and add my thoughts as well to just help you out and make you more educated on vehicles. It's something I'm very passionate about. I want people to not be as intimidated by vehicles. I'm not saying that you're going to dive in and do all your own maintenance, but at the very least, if anything, you will be more informed when you take it to the shop. So as always, we really do appreciate you guys so much for watching. We hope to see you guys in that next video.